Welcome back to CIA Declassified. To understand JGOWL, you have to look at the Pacific Theater in the late 1980s and early 1990s, a period of tectonic shifts in the global order. The world was watching the Berlin Wall crumble and the Soviet Union fracture into a dozen different pieces, but in the East, a different kind of titan was stirring, far more patient and technologically ambitious. The People's Republic of China was transitioning from a secluded regional power to a global contender, modernizing its military at a pace that left Western analysts scrambling for data. For the Central Intelligence Agency, the challenge was immense. A nation characterized by vast geographical scale, a language that defied easy automated translation, and a military communication infrastructure that was rapidly moving from vulnerable radio waves to hardened underground and undersea channels. The tension during this period was palpable. The Pacific was no longer just a vast body of water, but a web of invisible light and sound. The agency knew that to lose the signals war in the East was to concede the next century. Every command sent from the Central Military Commission in Beijing to the submarine pens in Qingdao was a puzzle piece. If the agency couldn't solve it, they were flying blind into a storm of rising nationalism and economic expansion. This was the silent front where the most important battles didn't involve the exchange of fire, but the successful interception of a data packet before it could be swallowed by the noise of the deep ocean. The era was defined by information asymmetry and a frantic race for technical dominance. While the West was focused on the Soviet collapse, the CCP was laying thousands of miles of fiber optic cable and launching sophisticated communication satellites to link its remote inland commands with its coastal fleets. The agency's technical divisions were in a high-stakes race to build the digital net, a way to capture the whispers of the Chinese leadership before they could be hardened by the next generation of digital encryption. This was the age of signals intelligence pioneers, where analysts sat in windowless rooms in Fort Meade and Langley, sifting through petabytes of noise to find a single string of actionable data. It was a world of invisible battlefields where a taped cable 3 miles below the ocean surface was worth more than a fleet of aircraft carriers. The technological leap required was staggering. They weren't just listening for radio pings anymore, they were siphoning data from glass fibers thinner than a human hair. The sheer volume of information threatened to drown the collectors, requiring a new philosophy of intelligence. One where machines sorted the wheat from the chaff before a human ever saw the transcript. JGL was the ultimate answer to this silence. It wasn't just a mission, it was a permanent electronic presence in the South China Sea, a project designed to ensure that the Pacific remained transparent to American interest, providing a window into a closed society during its most critical phase of expansion. How did JGL get its name? Unlike many agency projects that use randomized cryptonyms, JGL followed a specific technical naming convention used in the late 20th century. The prefix JG was a designator for Joint Global Tactical Signal Intelligence Initiatives, while AL was a nod to the operation's primary characteristic: nocturnal, silent, and possessing 360-degree sensory awareness. Records indicate that the OWL designation was specifically chosen because the primary intercept stations operated during the dark hours of the Chinese administrative cycle, capturing the late-night cables and encrypted maintenance bursts that occurred when the Dragon was supposedly asleep. Let's dive into the data stream, a cocktail of hard evidence and declassified voices from the Directorate of Science and Technology. JGL utilized specialized submarine platforms to tap undersea communication cables in the Taiwan Strait. The operation employed high-altitude, long-endurance aircraft to loiter on the edge of Chinese airspace, capturing line-of-sight microwave transmissions. Technical logs confirmed the use of burst transmission interceptors to capture compressed data packets sent by the People's Liberation Army. The agency established a listening post in a redacted partner nation in Southeast Asia to provide a triangulated fix on CCP internal radio traffic. JGOWL utilized early-stage machine learning algorithms to sort Mandarin dialects from background atmospheric noise. Documentation proves the project successfully intercepted the personal communications of regional CCP governors during the early 1990s economic reforms. The operation detected the movement of nuclear cable assets during the 1996 Third Taiwan Strait crisis. Records show the use of phantom sensors, buoys disguised as navigational aids to capture coastal radar signatures. JGOWL integrated with the Echelon network to share Pacific-specific data with Five Eyes partners. Agency records confirm that the project's data was a primary source for the president's daily brief during the transition of power in Beijing. The project utilized shipborne interferometry arrays to isolate low-frequency naval transmissions from commercial shipping noise. Records indicate the use of specialized saltwater-resistant sensors placed on the seafloor to detect the magnetic anomalies of passing Type O-91 submarines. Declassified memos show the agency used weather balloons as reflector relays to mount signals over the horizon back to collection ships. JGOWL captured the digitized signatures of Chinese indigenous fighter radar during initial test flights in the Gobi Desert. Documentation confirms the intercept of encrypted diplomatic traffic between Beijing and Pyongyang regarding nuclear energy cooperation. The operation mapped the entire internal microwave relay network of the Fujian Province Military District. Records show the agency deployed signal sniffers inside commercial shipping containers to passively record port-side communications in Shanghai. Technical logs reveal that JGOWL successfully cracked the blue sky encryption used by the Chinese Civil Aviation Authority for military transport tracking. The agency utilized solar-powered sea gliders to loiter near Chinese naval bases for months at a time. Records indicate a joint collaboration with the NRO to synchronize orbital sweeps with the JGOWL ground base intercept windows. Declassified budgets show millions allocated to linguistic pre-processing to handle the high volume of non-standard dialect intercepts. JGOWL identified the specific radio frequency fingerprints of every major surface combatant in the East Sea Fleet by 1994. The project utilized remote-operated vehicles to recover tape buoys that had been lost during high seas collection missions. Records show that JGOWL intercepts provided the early warning for the 1995 Chinese underground nuclear test at Lop Nor. Documentation indicates the agency successfully spoofed a Chinese relay station to trigger a diagnostic handshake that revealed the network's master architecture. JGOWL tracked the physical locations of ghost stations used by the CCP for clandestine broadcast into neighboring territories. Technical audits proved that JGOWL had a 92% success rate in correlating signal burst with physical troop movements on the ground. The project developed the echo cancellation protocol still used to filter underwater seismic noise from human communication. Records confirm the agency maintained a shadow library of over 500,000 unique voice prints of high-ranking Chinese military officials. JGOWL logs confirm the successful decryption of the 1993 Central Military Commission Logistics Directive. Records show the use of acoustic tethering to relay deep-sea intercept data to surface vessels via ultrasound. Declassified files mention the JGOWL-2 upgrade, which focused especially on the emergence of GSM-based mobile communications in coastal cities. The agency utilized heat map analysis to determine the most active communication hubs in the Pearl River Delta. Technical documentation describes the use of low probability of intercept radio links to send gathered data back to the U.S. Records indicate that the JGOWL program survived 3 major budget cuts by proving its unique value in tracking the 1992 Chinese naval expansion. The operation monitored the internal telemetry of Chinese ballistic missile tests conducted over the Pacific. Documentation reveals the use of linguistic baiting, where specific keywords were broadcast near the coast to trigger a detectable response from CCP sensors. JGOWL tracked the establishment of the first Chinese military fiber optic backbone in the Hainan Military District. Records prove the intercept of North Korean grain shipment requests sent via Chinese maritime frequencies. The project utilized temporal correlation to match signal spikes with physical satellite launches from Xichang. Technical logs confirm the successful identification of the electronic signature of the Chinese president's personal transport train. JGOWL employed cryogenic processing units to reduce thermal noise in its high-gain antenna arrays. Documentation indicates the use of passive coherent location to track Chinese stealth vessels by analyzing their interference with commercial FM radio waves. Records confirm that JGOWL successfully monitored the internal secure phone line of the Chinese embassy in Bangkok. The agency utilized ionospheric heaters to create temporary reflective patches in the atmosphere for targeted signal bounce back. JGOWL technical logs show the use of phase conjugation to correct signal distortion caused by underwater thermal layers. Records prove the operation identified the frequency hopping patterns of the PLA tactical field radios. The project utilized quantum tunneling detectors in its most advanced deep-sea tapping modules. Declassified files reveal a sub-project aimed at mapping the electronic topography of the Chinese underground command center in Beijing. The agency utilized broadband spectral analysis to distinguish between civilian power grid oscillations and military data center activity. Documentation shows JGOWL used laser vibrometry to listen to window vibrations at sensitive coastal administrative buildings. Records indicate the placement of inductive loops around key land-based power lines to capture the electromagnetic data leakage from neighboring secure facilities. The project employed a polarimetric radar to detect the subtle surface wakes of deep-diving submarines. Technical logs confirm the intercept of the 1991 Shanghai Naval Port Security Upgrade Protocols. Records show the use of differential GPS to track the micro movements of Chinese mobile ICBM launchers. Declassified files reveal that JGOWL was capable of intercepting and reassembling fragmented data from the 1994 Chinese military internet test. The operation tracked the underwater installation of Chinese acoustic sensor arrays intended to detect U.S. vessels. Documentation proves the use of microsats deployed in clusters to maintain constant coverage of the Spratly Islands. Records confirm the capture of the tactical data link signatures used by Chinese destroyers during live fire drills. The project monitored the expansion of the Chinese Great Firewall in its earliest conceptual stages. Technical logs indicate the success of cross-domain collection where radio intercepts were matched with physical courier movements tracked by satellite. A quote from a declassified operational directive: the JGOWL collection mandate is strictly limited to foreign signals of high intelligence value originating from the CCP Central Committee. A quote from a declassified quarterly assessment report: persistence is the primary weapon of JGOWL. The target must believe their silence is absolute for our harvest to remain viable. A quote from a declassified technical memo that's numbered 112-C. The transition from analog to digital within the target environment necessitates a radical shift in our sensor to processor latency requirements. A quote from a declassified director's review board: data harvested during the 1996 Taiwan contingency provided the only reliable real-time metric for assessing leadership intent in Beijing. Quote from a declassified Department of Defense budgetary request: JGOWL provides the essential electronic border required to maintain a strategic stability in the Asia-Pacific theater. A quote from a declassified intelligence evaluation: the fidelity of the JGOWL data stream has rendered traditional human intelligence reporting in the region secondary to our technical collection. Quote from a declassified internal briefing document: success in the JGOWL theater is predicated on the target's continued reliance on legacy relay vulnerabilities we have already mapped. And a quote from a declassified FOIA response: Redactions in the hardware exploitation logs are essential to protect the ongoing integrity of our physical access nodes within the target region. End quote. We must now face the black ink. The heaviest redactions in the JGOWL files are found in the Appendix C, Hardware Vulnerability Exploitation, and Section 14, Cross-Platform Infiltration Logs. In total, over 1,400 pages are completely blacked out. The government cites FOIA Exemption B1, National Security, and Section 6 of the Central Intelligence Agency Act of 1949. The reason provided is that these pages contain intelligence methods and tactical vulnerabilities that remain active in modern operations. Now, let's step off the map and into the speculative void. Some walk the dark corridors of thought and whisper about a silicon backdoor. They believe those 1,400 blacked out pages mask a massive operation to install dead drops within the hardware of Chinese manufactured routers exported in the early 90s. The theory is that JGOWL wasn't just catching signals in the air, it was receiving them from sleeper chips embedded in the very infrastructure the CCP was building. If true, the agency may have had a universal override for Chinese telecommunications for over a decade. Others, peering through the lens of orbital paranoia, look at the orbital overlay redactions and see evidence of a satellite hijack. This theory posits that the agency didn't just listen, they used ground stations to mimic command signals, effectively ghosting Chinese satellites and turning their eyes back onto themselves. The government purportedly hides this to prevent an arms race in command and control hijacking that would put every orbital asset at risk. There are also those who wander into the neuro-linguistic hypothesis. They suggest the advanced Mandarin processing redactions cover a project involving subliminal frequency injection. This idea holds that JGOWL could send back subtle low-frequency signals through the lines to induce anxiety in the target operators. This signal warfare would represent a leap into psychological operations that the agency is desperate to keep off the public record. A fringe group of deep-sea deniers suggests the undersea redactions mask a bioacoustic masquerade. They believe the agency developed a way to mask their underwater cable tapping equipment as the song of migrating whales. This would mean that for years the CCP was listening to what they thought was nature, while in reality it was the mechanical heart of JGOWL siphoning their secrets. Lastly, there is a haunting rumor of the Pacific Mirror. The theory suggests the redacted pages hide the fact that JGOWL wasn't just stealing data, but was actively replacing it in real time. According to this speculation, the agency used signal morphing technology to intercept a command, change its contents, and retransmit it so perfectly that the recipient never knew the order had been altered. If this were true, it would mean the agency wasn't just watching the rise of the dragon, they were secretly holding the leash, steering Chinese military movements from the shadows for years. Was Operation JGOWL a success? Tactically, it was omniscient. It provided the U.S. military with a god's eye view of the Pacific during a decade of extreme volatility. By successfully tapping into the most secure fiber optic lines in the region, JGOWL ensured that no major Chinese military exercise occurred without the agency having a front row seat. The tactical data gathered, specifically regarding submarine acoustic signatures and missile guidance frequencies, effectively neutered several of the CCP's strategic advantages during the mid-90s. The project demonstrated that even the most hardened physical perimeters are porous to a sufficiently advanced electronic ear. It validated the enormous expense of deep-sea operations as the only way to counter a modernizing adversary's silence. Strategically, it was definitive. It established the Pacific Signals Intelligence architecture that remains the foundation of American strategy in the East. JGOWL proved that technical intelligence could bridge the gap where human intelligence struggled due to the CCP's internal security protocols. It allowed the U.S. to manage the rise of China with a level of insight that prevented minor border skirmishes from escalating into global conflicts. The success of the operation is measured by the lack of surprises in the Pacific for nearly 20 years. It effectively moved the front line from the beaches to the electromagnetic spectrum, changing the nature of superpower competition forever. Furthermore, it paved the political way for the massive investment in the cyber defenses we see today, proving that data not just bullets, decides the fate of nations. As far as technological and operational breakthroughs go, the innovations born from JGOWL are the silent engines of modern defense. For instance, real-time automated translation. JGOWL pioneered neural networks to translate spoken Mandarin into English text in under 3 seconds, used by the NSA and global monitoring and by tactical units on the ground using universal translator devices. Fiber optic non-invasive tapping. The inductive coupler allowed reading data from fiber cables without physically cutting the glass. This is a standard tool now for special collection elements operating in denied access areas. Atmospheric signal reconstruction. JGOWL developed the ability to reconstruct shattered radio signals reflected off the ionosphere. As far as current military use, it's utilized in over-the-horizon radar systems and stealth detection arrays to this day. Digital fingerprinting of hardware. The project created a way to identify a specific computer or radio transmitter by its unique electronic jitter that is now used in the military as a core of modern electronic warfare, allowing the cyber command to tag and track a specific enemy laptop globally. JGOWL taught us that in the age of signals, the one who hears the most wins the most. It was a project that turned the Pacific into a vast acoustic mirror, reflecting the secrets of a superpower back to the halls of Langley. The ghost of those intercepted voices still haunt the digital archives of our history. We remain the watchers at the edge of the signal, forever catching the dragon's echo. This operation proved that the most secure secret is the one you don't even know you've already lost. Every pulse in the wire is a potential weapon in the hand of the silent observer. Thanks for listening. Keep your transmissions encrypted, your sensors sharp, and your eyes wide open. And remember, sometimes the dragon is best left to sleep in the void. Join us next time as we examine JM Cache. When an asset falls in the line of duty, the agency doesn't just send a letter. We'll uncover the facts behind JM Cache, the policy of financial support for the families of those who gave everything in the shadows. It was an operation of legacy and loyalty. Join us next time for The Silent Pension. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.